Begin the current Daf, Mesech Yoma Daf Mem Gimel. Begin on the top line of the Yomid. The Gemara continued the discussion of the previous Daf, discussing the psukim of the Paraduma, which relates to the concept that Ula had mentioned that Kala Parsha Kula is Mashma Meitzim Yad Mashma U Mashma Memela. That sometimes you find that these psukim that you find in the next pasuk is excluding what the previous pasuk had qualified, and sometimes it maintains it. Pishem is joining us for today's daf. Some of these we're going to discuss in today's daf, as we mentioned, that we keep on bringing different examples of psukim in Parashat Paraduma, which qualify laws stated in the previous psukim. Then we continue with the next Mishnah, which continues the narrative of the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol, which goes through this whole Masechta until the last parak. We find many differences between the Avodah of Keteris and Yom Kippur and every day during the year. Some of the key terms, the concepts that we can learn about in today's daf are Ein Mid, Amid, El Rabbis, when you have an exclusion, and again an exclusion, it actually, its inverse, double negative, actually makes a positive. Tful Yom is something that was tamei, that was immersed that same day, so it started the Torah process, but it didn't have yet Her Shemesh sundown. Malach Afnav is the difficult avodah that the Kohen Gadol had for the Keteris and Yom Kippurim, that he had to hold the vessel that had the Keteris, and at the same time he had to spill it into the full cup, his hands full of the Keteris. Puk Tani Lebra is a phrase you tell when you say go out and teach your teaching, essentially saying that it's incorrect. So begin the current daf, Daf Gimel on the top line of the Yomid, which we continue where the pasuk says you should place it, this animal, this paraduma, to Lazar the Kohen, and he should take it out of the machna. And it says v'shachat oisa, that he should slaughter it. Which, what does that mean? He should slaughter it. It means shelo yishchat acheres ima. You should not slaughter another animal with the paraduma. That's what it says oisa, to exclude not to do another animal at the same time, or else that's going to invalidate the paraduma. When it says v'shachat oisa lefanav, you should slaughter it in front of him. So that we had already machlekes on the previous daf. Rav, we said, mean he held the shechita also is impossible bizarre, has to be done with a lawsuit. So what does it mean lefanav? We meant that he should not lose his thoughts about it, that he should be focused on it. The Shmuel, we said no, it's actually teaching that a non-kohen is actually able to slaughter the paraduma. The Elazar right, that's what it says in front of him to say, but Elazar could go ahead and see. So we already quoted this machlekes Rabbi Shloimy the previous stuff. What does it mean lefanav? So Isa tells you not to slaughter another one at the same time, and lefanav is either that that Rav says no, it actually has to be Elazar, but it's just teaching not to do the das. And we said, well, you need a pasuk by shchita, you need by sreifa. And Shmuel says that no, it means in front of him that he doesn't have to do it, teaching that it's kosher bizarre. When the next pasuk Dalit continues and says that Velokach Elazar Kohen. Elazar Kohen is going to take, what is he taking? He's taking the blood, midama, from the blood be'etzbai with his fingers, to go ahead and spray, which on Har Mishcha, the Har Zaysin, they would spray towards 7 times towards the Beis Hamikdash. So Lishmul, in this word, is going to be important to know what you interpret in the previous passage. According to Shmuel, that he already has said when it says Lefanav, by the Shechita, which was telling you that a non-Kohen was able to do the Shechita because it was in front of Allah, so he wasn't doing the Shechita himself. So now by the Kabbalah Saddam, then you had to write that it had to be done with Elazar. That's what it says, V'lokach Elazar Kohen la'adur la'Elazar. To tell us that, now we're going back, that this part has to be done by Elazar, because had we just said, V'lokach midama, he takes from the blood, I would have thought this is going on the Sheikhin, because you just told me Shechita is kosher bizarre. So I have to tell you, V'lokach Elazar Kohen, Elazar has to go ahead and do the Kabbalah. Now, but Rav, that he said that the Shechita also had to be with Elazar, so by the Kabbalah, why do you have to write V'lokach Elazar? Of course, he's the one that did the Shechita, he has to do the Kabbalah. So actually comes out that have a mir achar mir. You're actually saying it has to be Elazar by the Shechita and no one else. And again, by the Kabbalah, you're again telling me it has to be with Elazar and no one else. So the ein mir achar mir elo l'rabbis. So an exclusion after an exclusion actually comes to include, to tell you that Philikoin had it, that even, and this is what's called mashma meitzim yad mashma, that even a kohen hedged, although before I told you that it has to do with the kohen gadol, with the skan, with that of Elazar, he would tell you that it's even with the kohen hedged, which Tosfos says obviously we're telling you that it's only with the kabbalah and the azal, but by taking the animal out, the previous psukim, taking it out to the Har Hazesim, and with the Shechita, that specifically has to be with a Lazar, because according to all interpretations, everyone agrees that when it says Oisa, that this has to be for Lazar, and it can't be anyone else. Here, we're saying. Yeah, this is the lokach Elazar kind of taking is the taking the blood with his finger and then spraying towards the oil mite 7 times.
It says Betzboy.
Yeah.
Means Azor,
yeah, but the pasuk, there is no pasuk here that talks about the Kabbalah, because the previous pasuk it just talks about a shachat eislafana, and then it says v'lokach Elazar kain midama betzboy. It doesn't say really anywhere about doing the Kabbalah. It's when it talks about Avodah Saddam, it mentions Elazar Kain, which tells us that it has to be Elazar. But told me already the previous pasuk has to be Elazar. So I'm saying it's 2 exclusions, which actually is an inclusion, which tells us it can even be with the Kain head. Then the pasuk continues in pasuk Vav. It says, "V'lokach HaKain," and the Kain takes, and this is all part of the procedure of the paradama. He takes 8 arrows, takes the cedar wood, the ezav, and the hyssop, the shmitalos, and the red thread. So, the Shmuel, according to Shmuel, that he said that the Kabbalah Nazar had to be with Elazar, because the Shechita didn't have to be. So when it says Elazar by the Kabbalah, it's saying specifically Elazar. So now it's saying Kayin to validate by the throwing of the 8 arrows into the fire, that fellow with Kayin Hedjed. That even a Kayin Hedjed, this is again what's called Mashma Maitzim Yad Mashma, where you're excluding what the previous pasuk said. The previous pasuk says that by Kabbalah and the Zrika has to be with Elazar. Here we're saying that you don't have to have with Elazar. This of the 8 arrows is valid by any Kain. It says HaKayin, doesn't say Elazar over here. So too, whenever we say that, we're excluding from what the previous pasuk has said. Now, L'Rav, that he said that already the Kabbalah was kosher with a Kain Hedjed because he had a Mirach Hamid. So here, it's what's called a Mashma Mamela. No, it's not excluding from what the pasuk had said beforehand. But Itzrich, why do you have to write Kain? Didn't you already say that by the Kabbalah and the Zrika, it's enough with a regular Kain? So I already know that. Why now by the 8 arrows do you have to write Kain again? No, because if you would have just written the Lokach 8 arrows and you would not have written Kain, like it says Lokach HaKain, so you would have thought to say that when it says V'lokach, whoever wants to, and we would not have said it's going on the Kain of the Kabbalah. Why would we not have said it? Isn't that the theme of the previous pasuk? And you'd continue and say, "V'lokach." Who should say the 8 arrows is the kind that we just spoke about with the Zrika? No. Even the love goof of the partner, and since the 8 arrows and the shnita laws, they're not part of the paraduma itself. So lo le'boy kain. I would have thought to say that that's not part of the avodah that requires a kain. Mashallah, that's to tell you again, v'lokach hakayin, that it requires a kain. So, but it's mashma memela. It's not excluding what the previous pasuk had said. Now, we're continuing with pasuk Zayin. It says v'chibes begod of hakoyin, that so the kohen that did this avodah in the paraduma has a requirement to wash his garments. Now, why say hakoyin? Here it's unnecessary. Of course, if the kohen that did it has to wash his, we're talking about the kohen is doing the avodah. So tell you no bikihunai. This kohen is an extra pasuk because you should have just said v'chibes begod. If he washes his garments, I would have known that the one that's doing the avodah has to be the one that washes the garments. Rather, it's come to put the kohen with his garments, in other words, to say that it has to be done, all the avodas of the paraduma with the big day kuna, and not with his big day chayil, not with his weekday garments. Now, when the pasuk ends over there, but tamei hakohen ad ha'arev, that the kohen is tamei till the evening, again, I know we're talking about the kohen, so just say the tamei ad ha'arev. Rather, it's coming to tell you again, kohen b'kihuna to say ladayers, to teach you that even the paraduma that's done for all future generations, that also that when they do the avodah, it has to be done with the big day kuna. But says the Gemara, wait a second, this is very good according to the opinion that was mentioned in the previous daf, that Ladayers b'koyin headed, that he doesn't learn out chuka v'yem kippur. He says when it says that for future, it's only saying here this generation had to be Elazar, but all future generations doesn't have to be. So that Mandam had said, because all future generations is enough with even a regular kohen. So Shapir, it makes sense why you have to write over here that it has to be done with the word kohen, which we said is going to teach you for all future generations has to be done with big dekuna. It's teaching you that although it's really not an avodah, because it's not done on the Har HaBayis, it's done on Har Mishcha. Okay, it has to be wearing the big dekuna. That I could understand that. But Amanda Amladar is according to the other Mandam, which we had said that only in that generation was it the Skan, was it Elazar. But all for a generation had to actually be the Kohen Gadol. Would we say he knows that from because Chulka? It says Chulka Satar by the Paraduma, and it says Chulka by Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur to tell you that there also needs to be the Kohen Gadol. So Hash the Kohen Gadol mean you tell me that by the Paraduma you need a Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Did I have to tell you that he's wearing the big dekuna? In other words, you see the high level that require Shreyas that big dekuna. So yes, you do need the pasuk. Because Milsa Dasa B'Kavachayim, although it's something that you can learn from a Kavachayim, because if you have to have the Kohen Gadol B'Shreyas to be big dekuna. But Tark, because of Lakra, so the pasuk goes through the effort and writes it in the pasuk, and it's this pasuk of the Tomei HaKohen Ad Arabs that's telling you for all of your generations, the Kohen Gadol has to be wearing his big dekuna when he's doing that in the Paradum. Then we continue with pasuk test. Again, this is moving along the procedures of the paraduma. It says because we're slaughtering the animal, we're receiving the blood, we're spraying the blood, and we're burning it, and we're putting in the 8 airs and the shlit into that fire, and whoever did that void is tamei, and the pasuk continues. Okay, now you got ashes. V'asav ishtar as ephar par v'nif. So now a pure man goes and he gathers the ashes of the para and he puts it on the side. Now, when it says ish, what's ish come to tell us? It's coming to validate even a non-kohen, because previously we were told about a kohen. So why are you suddenly using the word ish? Tell you any man, even a non-kohen. Because had you written v'asaf and seif par that he gathered the ashes of the para, I would have thought it's going on the previous pasuk of a kohen, because the previous person would have told about a kohen. So therefore, it says over here ish to tell you even a non-kohen can gather the ashes. When it says that he's tar, what's that coming to teach us? To validate that any pure person, even a woman, because if you think it's coming to exclude a tummy person, obviously you wouldn't have to write Torah, because the Torah already calls the paraduma a chatas. Of course, a chatas has to be done by a Torah person. So obviously, when you're saying Torah, you're coming to validate even a woman. Now it says v'niach that he goes and he places it down. What does that mean? Mishish beidas la'nech. We're talking about someone who has the consciousness to put it down. That excludes a deaf mute, a mentally deranged, and a minor, that they don't have the intelligence to put something away and keep it protected, so therefore that's coming to exclude the Cheshet V'Kat. Now, related to a later pasuk, a pasuk Yedzayin, here it just, instead of quoting the pasuk first and explaining it, it quotes it in the reverse way. Snan Hasan, learned over there in the Mishnah, Mesechtes Par, that Hakol Ksher and Lekadosh, this is going on the pasuk in Bamidbar Yotes pasuk Yedzayin, where it says V'lokchu la'tamei, they're going to take for the tummy person me'afar seifes hachatas, from the ashes of the burnt chatas, which is the paraduma, but nothing of mayim chaim al keli, they're going to put in it live waters, spring waters, into the vessel. So the Mishnah teaches over there Hakol Ksher and Lekadosh, everyone is valid to do the kiddush, which is to put the water on the ashes, or like Tyson says, the ashes on the water. Be that as it may, it's the mixing of the ashes and the water. Everyone's able to do that part of the procedure, which again, this is later on, as we're quoting here in the pasuk of Yedzayin. Except for a cheresh, shait, and a cotton. That's the Rabbanan. Yehuda, he's machshav a cotton. No, he says actually a cotton is able to do it. And the reason why we're going to be machshav specifically a cotton is because at least he's asil l'chlal das. But he's machshav b'katan, upaisel b'isha b'adreginus, and he invalidates a woman and an androgynous, which has the genders of both male and female. So okay, that's their machlekes. But it says Gemamai Tamid Rabbanan. So what's the reason of these two opinions? What's the reason of the Rabbanan? So the Chsiv, and that's the pasuk that we're quoting here. It says when it comes to the kiddush, when it comes to mixing the ash and the water, it says Balakhu la'tamei. They're going to take for the tummy person ma'afar seifes hachatas, from the ashes of the burnt chatas. Now, this says after the previous pasuk we had mentioned of Asaf Ishtar. We said that okay, we have to gather the ashes of the burnt paraduma. So this is the avodah after the gathering. Now it says v'lakhu. What's v'lakhu? They will take. Who's they? They who we mentioned by the gathering of the ashes. Who is that? We had mentioned a non-kohen we included. As we said that Ish was machshir the zar. And we said Tar, there was machshir the woman. Oh, that's who Balak is going on them. And we had excluded a cher shed v'katan from Meniach. So whoever we spoke about by gathering ashes, those are the ones that will mix it together with the water. So that's the reason. Hanach the pasalach basi, for those who are invalidated by the gathering the ashes, pasalach the kiddush. That's why I'm saying on Malach, they're going to be the ones invalidated by kiddush. which would exclude chereshet b'katan. Whereby validated by the gathering ashes, which was a zar and a isha. That's invalidating by the mixing of the ashes with the water. That's the reasoning for the Penya the Rabban. But Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says no. If that would be the case, in other words, since it's going on the previous psukim of the gathering of the ashes, so let the pasuk say v'lokach, not v'lochu, because by the gathering of the ashes, it also said in the singular terminology. It said v'asaf in the singular. So say v'lokach. My v'lokchu suddenly changes to the plural. To tell you it's including someone else, because singular to plural, is that for the cotton. The pasal chasim, even the minder that I had invalidated by the gathering ashes, hacha kasher, by the mixing with the water, is actually going to be valid. Okay, but then the question is, isha manale. How does he know that a woman is invalid? And also an androgynous that he said is invalid, because androgynous is maybe a woman. That's why androgynous is included in that of a woman. But I thought a woman is kosher by the gathering of the ashes. Why suddenly are you saying that she's excluded? You're including a cotton from malakhu, but why excluding a woman? Oh, he says because the end of the pasuk says v'nasan. It says v'nasan, which is in the masculine, v'loi v'nasna, which Tosfos points out when the entire Torah is written lashon zachar, we don't usually exclude a woman unless it says ish explicitly. But here, since the pasuk changed from v'lakhu lashon rabin and then it said v'nasan, that gives us reason to make a drasha to say v'loi v'nasna, to say that only a man's kosher to do this avodah and not a woman. But Rabbanan, they would tell you that no, the truth is that it's going back on the previous parasha of Sifa, of the gathering of the ashes, which is therefore kosher by a woman and invalid by a minor. So then you're asking why does it say balakhu, why doesn't it say balakach like it says in the singular of the previous parasha? They tell you as follows for a different cheshbon. And that is, ikas of Rachmana, if the Torah would have written v'lokach v'nasan, as you're saying, it should have said in the singular. Havamin, I would have thought to say ad shakol chad. I would have thought until one person takes the ashes, v'yov chad, and that he himself puts it on the water. That's what it would sound like if you said in the singular v'lokach, he takes and v'nasan and he places. So therefore, because Rachmana v'lokhu, if the Torah writes v'lokhu, then no, even if two people take, it doesn't have to be one person. And because Rachmana v'lokhu v'nasan, the Torah written both in the plural, they take and they will place. I mean, I would have said, until two people take it, and then two people place it. Because that's why the Torah wrote v'lokhu in the plural and v'nasan in the singular. Not to tell you v'lokhu like if you did that it's including a cotton and v'nasan excluding a woman. No. It's whoever we said in the previous parasha, the same over here. But to tell you that even if let's say two people would take and one person would place, in other words, and it's not dafka, it's not specific, coming to tell you that whatever one person, the same person, different people, it's all going to be valid. That's why we said we switched it up from Malakhu to Benas. Now we continue with Pasuk Yudches. The next Pasuk says, Balakach Ezop, okay, you finally got the ashes gathered and you finally put it together with the water. Now, Balakach Ezop, what you do is you take a hyssop, the tablet of mine, you dip it into the water. If you are a Ishtar, you're a pure man, and because we're about to go ahead and spray the tummy person with these waters. Now, this is told by the spraying of the waters, which is the avodah after Kiddush, after the mixing of the ashes with the water. So, Lirabanan, that they said that the Kiddush that was done with that gathering of the ashes, and by the gathering of the ashes we had said Ish Tahar, which was telling us that it's kosher with a zar and a woman, because Ish was including a zar, and Torah was including a woman. So obviously when you're saying Ish Tahar over here, by the dipping of the hyssop into the water, obviously it's not coming to validate a non-kohen and a woman and to invalidate a minor and to say, oh, this is what's called mashma meila, it's maintaining the theme of the previous psukim. Because if that would be the case, you shouldn't have said anything. You should have just written v'lokach eza v'tabel b'mayim v'hiza, and I would have known that it's continuing the theme of the previous psukim. So why does it say again, ish tahar? Make a drasha the opposite. Ish v'lo isha. It's saying a man and not a woman, which this is obviously what we call that Ula had said that mashma meitzim yad mashma, that you're obviously coming to exclude what you had just previously said, because why are you saying ishtar? It must be a man and not a woman. And when it says tar, is actually hachshas hakatan, is to invalidate a minor, which you had invalidated by the kiddush. You're obviously coming to validate over here because of why you're saying this. Now, whereas Rabbi Yehuda, it's the same thing. Everyone's going to agree that the halacha is the opposite of a kiddush, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to be the opposite of the Rabbanan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that he had said that a woman is invalid by the kiddush, and a cotton is kosher, so it's going to say the opposite. Ish b'lei cotton. When it says a man, it's telling you not a minor, and tahar is lahachshar seisha, because like we had previously said, that type of drush of the Rabbanan. Because obviously, that you can't say it's mashma mamela, it's maintaining what previously said, like we said, because then don't say anything. So obviously you have to say it's the opposite, but which opposite? Everyone's having a different opposite. Where according to Yehuda, it's going to be machshir the woman and invalidating the minor. But however, the Gemara asks, on this opinion of Yehuda, it seems to be contradicted from a Mishnah Masechtas Parah, Meisvei. Mishnah says, "A kol ksher lahazis." Everyone is kosher to spray the waters, which is what we're talking about right here, with the hyssop and spraying. Chutz mitumtum ba'adregin esvish, except for a person that doesn't have any gender signs or has both, the isha and a woman, which that's what the suffix is regarding if like a woman, which we're saying a woman is excluded from doing the spraying. But v'katan shish b'das, a minor that has intelligence, isha misayata umaza. A woman can assist him. Jason discusses regarding what part she's assisting him, holding the water, even at the time of the azah, and umaza, and he could go ahead and spray. So essentially, we're excluding a woman and anything that might be a woman, and including that of a minor, which was the opinion of the Rabbanan that we had just quoted, that we said that it's ish v'le isha, and Torah is lahachshar sakatan. Now, as we continue to the base, so this is what the Gemara is asking, he says, but v'le polig Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't disagree there in that Mishnah. What do you mean? According to him, it should be the opposite. It should be machshir a woman and invalidate a katan, like we just said. So why doesn't he disagree? So says the Gemara, Amar Abaye says, even the Amar, since the master had said, we had quoted this halacha from Ula starting off, that this whole parasha, paraduma, is mashma meitzim yad, mashma or mashma mamela. There's two versions how you could learn these psukim. Every pasuk you have to wonder, is it excluding from what it had just previously said, or is it maintaining what we had just said? Now, you obviously cannot say over here, mashma mamela, like we said, because the words ishtar would be unnecessary. You already just said that in the previous psukim of the Asifa, which Kiddush continued that theme. So why would you say now by the spring Ishtar again? So obviously that Polik, he obviously disagrees because he were obviously talking about mashma meitzim yad mashma, but according to Yehuda, the mashma meitzim yad mashma has to be that it's validating a woman and invalidating a minor. So therefore, he didn't have to disagree with you. In other words, we knew by default that he's going to disagree because obviously a mashma meitzim yad mashma situation. And according to Yehuda, yeah, it's going to be the opposite of the Rabbanan. That's going to be ish v'loy katan Torah lahachshar seisha, the opposite of the Rabbanan. We continue with pasuk Yutes. The pasuk says that the hiza hatar l'tamei. Okay, now we just dipped in the hyssop, and now the tar person sprays on the tamei person. Now this word tar is superfluous because, like we said, we're obviously talking about a tar person. So what's saying hatar ala tamei? Tar mechlal shu tamei. When you're saying that he's pure, it sounds like as if that, but he was tummy. You're saying he's tar now, but we're excluding him from the category of tumah. That's limud. This is the source that al tful yoim that we know. We do so many different hasharas of tahara because of the paraduma, because we compromise it a little bit. That we teach that tful yoim shakash the part is valid to do that by the part that he was tummy. That's actually they deliberately made him tummy to lahitzim libin shel tzedukim. That's what it says. What do you mean tar? Of course he's tar. Yeah, he just became tar because he was actually tamei and he just immersed himself, and he's not in the category of tumah. You're right, he's tar, but he's not fully tar yet. He didn't have sundown. That's the source for this halacha from hiza tar al hatamei. Now Amar Basi, he says, like this teaching of Ulu that we started off on the previous topic, it says kihababah, that when they would analyze this Rabbi Yechon and Rish Lakish Bepar in the parashas of Paraduma, they wouldn't be able to conclude from it. In other words, they wouldn't be able to take out a novelty to be able to show a uniform theme, to show how all the psukim are either uniform or that they follow one after the other. What a fox gets on his feet when he steps on a plowed field, which is almost nothing. Rather that they said, you're right, it's either mashma meitzim yad mashma or mashma mamela. You're right, some of these psukim are going to be coming out exactly the opposite of what the previous pasuk had said. that suddenly, yes kohen, no kohen, yes woman, no woman, yes minor, no minor, and sometimes it's going to be continuing saying, yeah, whoever we said in the previous pasuk is what we're saying in this pasuk. That's how you have to learn up the parashas in the paraduma. Now, continuing with what we had said on the previous daf, which is what started off the whole conversation regarding the shchita of para uparoi, which what does paraduma have to do with Amisach? We were discussing two types of paras, two types of cows. Either our cow of the paroi of the Kohen Gadol, and the par of the paraduma, which we wanted to know, is it kosher shchita b'zeh, as machlekes Rav and Shmuel, machlekes of many other Amaram, regarding which shchita is valid by zeh. Now, Tani Rabbi Yechanan, the Gemara just concludes this discussion. There was a teacher, Bryce of Rabbi Yechanan, that says, "Kol shchitas ksheres b'zeh." All shchitas, we know, you could do the shchita with a non-kohen. Chutz mishal par, except for that of the paraduma. So Rabbi Yechanan said to him, "Puk tani lebra, go teach your Bryce outside." Which is basically telling me it's incorrect. Let it see the shechita is absolute. We don't find any time that a shechita is going to be invalid by a non-kohen. Now it says the Gemara, not only is he not paying attention to the teacher of the Brisa, the Tana, and the Rabbi Leitzais, he doesn't even pay attention to his own teacher. Because he said it in the name of his own teacher. Shechita is par bazar psulos. A non-kohen to slaughter the paraduma is going to be invalid. I say it's kosher. Because we don't find shchita to be invalid by the non-kohen. Now we said in the Mishnah that Boloi Eitzel Parishnia. He comes back to his par a second time. And he says Vida again. Now it says the Gemara, which if you a simple analysis of the Vida the second time, you see that there's different wording. It says the Gemara, why is it by the first confession? The Lo Yomer of Bnei Aaron Kedeshech. It didn't say and the sons of Aaron, your holy people. He only says Ani Uvesi, me and my family. And now why is it different by the second confession? It says Bnei Aaron Kedeshech and the sons of Aaron, your holy people. Where he comes now, he includes all his fellow Kahana. So Tan Rabbi Shmuel was taught in the Brisa. It should be Rabbi Shmuel. The Kachi needs in this sense. That's how logic would dictate, and this is how it's appropriate to be. The Mutiv Yove Zakai, better let it be someone who is already vindicated, meaning after he already made confession on himself, and now he's pure, so now he's fit to atone for other people, and then he'll atone for his fellow count who are still guilty. And that it shouldn't be that he himself didn't say yet say vidoy, he's still chayiv. How could he say vidoy for the rest of Klal Yisrael, for the rest of his brothers? In other words, he first atones for himself. The first time around, he says for him and his family, and then second time around, he says for his fellow kahana. Now we continue with the next Mishnah, which continues.
Only through the Yoma that he did it.
So we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah, where we already said, and if you're following the theme of the Mishnah, you'll be seeing all the different the order of this day, which he spoke about. He did the vidui on his par. They did the hagrala. He came back to his par a second time, and he did vidui. So now, what continues is Tashachtai. Now, they went, he slaughtered his par. Again, he just did a vidui a second time. They did already the lotteries of which one Sar Hashem, which is Sar Hazazel. And this is the second time he's coming back to his par. He slaughters it. The kibbutz b'nezik is dama. He receives the blood with a bowl. But Neisman Labishu Mamaras by, and he gives it to the one that's going to be mixing it. Ala Rebbe Revisha Behechel on the fourth row in the from the Heichel. In other words, the tiles in the base of Mikdash were made in rows of tiles of marble, and every single row is called a Rebbe. Now, the Gemara assumes right now it actually means on the fourth row from the entryway of the Heichel inside the Heichel itself, not like this picture. They think actually, as the Gemara is going to ask, it sounds like it's Sheva Heichel, in the Heichel, the fourth row of the tiles in the Heichel. But either way, we're going to explain that it actually means out of the Heichel, the fourth row. But why is he giving it to someone to mix it? Kadei Shalai Yikr, so that it shouldn't go ahead and congeal, because he's going to be delaying. He's not going to be spraying the blood right away. Because the order of Avodah is going to be, he's first going to do the Ketairis, like it's actually the order that it's put in the Parsha and Parsha Achrei Mais. So he has to give it to someone who's going to be mixing it, and the guy mixes it on the fourth row in the Heichel. Then what he does is Notel Machta. He takes a shovel, he goes up to the top of the Mizbeach, and he pushes the coals to either side, and he shovels out from the inner ones that are the really consumed coals, and he gets those hot coals. And he goes and he places it down on the fourth row of the Azara. And he leaves it there until he first takes his handfuls of keteres, which he then puts into a spoon. And then he brings the spoon and the shovel inside the Kodesh HaKodashim. So first he gets the coals, he puts it down, and he's going to go ahead and after he puts it down, so that he can go ahead and get his keteres. And then he's going to go in and bring it inside the Kodesh HaKodashim. Now, says the Mishnah, B'chol Yom, every single day when they would go ahead and shovel the coals from the Maruch HaShniyah of keteres, there was two fires, primarily. The main one, which they brought all the kabbans, and the second one was special for fire to use for the keteres, to bring it on the Mizbech HaPnimi for the keteres in the morning and the evening. So every day, he would shovel with a silver shovel, which you might explain the reason, and then he would take the hot coals with the silver shovel and put it into a golden shovel. And then you would bring those hot coals and put it on the Mizbech HaPnimi. But today, he shoveled with the golden shovel, and with that shovel he brought those coals into the Kodesh HaKodashim. Now, the reason for all these discrepancies between Yom Kippur and every other day is because of the chulsh of the Kohen Gadol. Because the Kohen Gadol is weak. He's doing the whole avoid himself. Even the Baal Tefillah, you see the Baal Musaf, it's an oiskim mitchit, gedam and amissiv, The Kohen Gadol is actually doing work over here. He's busy from the wee morning hours of the day and he's doing everything himself. So he had to try to make it as easy as possible. So instead of making him take out from the silver shovel to the gold shovel, the same shovel he used to shovel it, he would bring it in. So to B'chol Yom kavan. Every single day, there was the silver shovel contained 4 kavan of coals. And he would empty out when he would be going into a shovel of 3 kavan, and then 1 kavan would just fall on the floor. Now, today the shovel was of 3 kavan, and instead of having to empty it out into a smaller vessel, that's the same size that he brought in. Now, he actually says every single day we would shovel with the shovel was a saw, meaning 6 kav. And he would empty it into a shovel that was 3 kav. And again, today the shovel was 3 kav in the Ba'ai Matnas, and that was the shovel he brought in by itself. Now, every single day the shovel was very heavy. Today it was light. Every single day the shovel was short, the handle was short. Today the handle is long, and the reason is so that he could put the handle under his arm, and his arm could assist him in holding the shovel. That's only if it's a long handle. And again, because we want to make it easy on the Kohen Gadol. Every single day the gold was yellowish. Today it was red gold. That's the Rim Menachem. Every single day he would bring a half of mana b'shachris in the morning, and a half of mana of keteres in the evening. Today, besides the one, he would still do the keteres as a regular avodah. But besides that, he would add on 2 cupfuls, handfuls, which he would bring lefnai v'lefnim, besides the partial shachas and shalavis that he put on the mizbech HaPnimi. Every single day, it was finely ground the keteres. Today it was fine of the fine, meaning the one that we bring in lefnai v'lefnim, he brought it back to the makteshes, to the mortar, and he grinded it again even finer. Similar chilukim is that b'chol yom, every single day kahanim, when the kohen would go up onto the mizbeach, they would go up on the eastern part of the ramp, meaning the ramp, the eastern part of the ramp is to the right of the one who's going up onto the ramp, where because it's facing towards the north when you're going up to the ramp, which are on the south, and since we know kol pinoisav shel adam is limin, whenever you turn you should go to the right. So it's not appropriate that you should be traversing if you're going to the right anyway, it's not appropriate to cross that kevish unnecessarily. Now, the width of the kevish was 16 amas, so when you're going up, you go up on the eastern part, and then you go up on the mizrach. So you, every single day, when the kohen would come up, he would go on the right side, which is the eastern part of the kevish, but he already remembered, and when he came down, so he would go around, and he comes down on the western part, which is on the left side. But today the Kohen Gadol, he shows his honor and the love of the Jewish people, that he's their agent, and he makes himself like a family member. And if he's coming up to the Mizbeach to go around the Mizbeach, for example, let's say he has to spray the blood of the Chatas, or to burn the regular Tamidin on the fires on the Mizbeach, so then actually, he would actually be able to traverse the whole ramp, necessarily, unnecessarily. He would be able to go up in the middle, come down in the middle. He didn't have to go like as normally you go up on the right side and you come down on the left side. And Rabbi Yehuda, he actually says, no, the oil can go to oil to be a He says always, the Kohen Gadol always has that chashiv. It's not only in Kippurim, he always could go up in the middle and come down in the middle. Similarly, every single day, every single day, the Kohen Gadol, he would sanctify his hands and his feet from the water basin like everyone else. Today, he would use an Yom Kippurim from a golden flask. Yehuda says, no, every single day, he wouldn't use from the keys. The Kohen Gadol, he would use a special golden flask. Now, every single day, there were 4 fires. He must explain exactly what they are and the source of this. There were 4 pyres, 4 places of fires on the Mizbeach. By Yom Chamish today, there was 5. That's the Rebbe Meir. He says 1 less. Every single day there was 3 and today there was 4. Yehuda he says 1 less than that, and he says no, every single day there's 2, which that's Marach B'Dov. You have to burn on. You have Marach Shnei Shel Ketaris, which you take the Ketaris from those coals. By Yom Shalosh and today there was 3. There was 1 more, which will explain the Gemara exactly what that was. Something to discuss in today's Daf in Yoma Daf Mem Gimel. We will continue to explain the psukim of the parsha of the Paraduma, which we said is going to be one of 2 things. Either it's mashma moitzim yad mashma, that the pasuk is excluding what we had previously said, or it's mashma meila, it's continuing on what we had just said. So when it says in the pasuk b'shachat oisa, that you're going to slaughter it, what do you mean you slaughter it? Of course you're slaughtering it. No, to say that you can't slaughter another one with it. When it says lafanav, you're going to slaughter in front of him. So that was the machlekes Rabbi Shloimy we mentioned in previous stuff, which either means to say no, Allah has to shecht it, but it means that he's not supposed to be Mashiach Das. Or, no, like Shmuel says, Lefanav, I mean, in front of him, obviously he's not shefting it, it's coming to validate even a non-kohen. Now, the importance of knowing that machlekes is that that's going to be relevant for the next psukim. Because when it says after that, V'lakach Elazar Kohen, Elazar Kohen takes it, well, of course, you just said V'shachat Lefanav, so it depends who you're going like. According to Shmuel, who said that actually that it's kosher with a zar, so no, we have to say that the taking of it is going to be only with Elazar. Now, according to Rav, who already said that it was being done by Elazar the Shechita. So now that you're taking it to burn it, of course it's talking about Elazar. Why have to say B'lakach Elazar Kain? So it's actually Achamiyad, which is actually coming to include actually a Kain Hadjit, because it's already a double miyad, which is coming to include. Then when it says B'lakach HaKain Eitz Eres, what are you saying that B'lakach HaKain Eitz Eres? It depends. According to Shmuel, that said regarding the B'lakach Elazar Kain of taking the para itself to burn, that you had to be with Elazar. Oh, now he's saying it could even be a Kain Head. He's saying HaKain doesn't say Elazar over here. According to Rav, already in the previous pasuk of burning the paraduma, he already included that of a Kain Hedjit. So what are you saying here by the Eitz Eres HaKain? We already know you could do a Kain. Oh, you needed it. Why do you need it? Because you would have thought to say that, but it's not the paradum itself. Maybe here you don't need to have a Kain. So we're saying that no, here also that you still need to have a Kain, but again, it's enough for the Kain Hedjit. Then when it says that he has to wash his garments, whoever did this, that went to burn the paraduma, why does it say HaKayin? And it says it near the word Begadav, to say that he has to be wearing his big kahuna, has to be Bekuhunai. And when it says again, the Tomei HaKayin ad Arv, which again, of course, we know we're talking about, so it's saying that even L'Dairais has to be Bekuhunai, all 3 generations have to be wearing the big kahuna when they do the Avodah the paraduma. And what do you mean? If you're saying that it's the Kohen Gadol that we said for 3 generations, of course, if it has to be the Kohen Gadol, of course it has to be big. There's no Torah from Gadol L'Kra. We still go through the effort and we write a pasuk. Then it says, so okay, we already went, we shechted, and we sprayed the blood, and we went and we burnt the paradum, we burnt the Eitz Eres Mishnita Las. Then it says, you're going to gather, Ish Tahar is going to gather as Efa HaPara. So what's Ish? What do you mean Ish? Of course Ish. No. Because why saying Ish? Previously we said a Kain. Oh, come and say any man, even a Zar. And it says Tar, we know it's Tar because it's a Chata, so what's Tar coming to include? To validate a woman, any Tar person. When it says Veniach, that says you have to have Das Lanech, that's excluding a Cheresh Bekat, who doesn't have Das. Now, then when it says V'lachu, they will take for the tummy person from the ashes of the Shreifas Achatas, meaning who's they? So we just spoke about whoever gathered it. They will be the ones that will do the kiddush, that will mix the ashes with the water. So the Rabbanan hold that Hanafta Pasa Basika Pasa B'Kiddush. If you have the same halacha, that's going to be Pasa L'Cher Shel V'Katan, and it's going to be Kasher with a Zar and a Isha. Rabbi Yehuda, he says no. The word V'Lachlu is coming to say plural. Why doesn't it keep the same as it said before? It should say V'Lakach, like it said V'Asaf in the singular. V'Lachlu is coming to say that even a cotton is kosher, and it's excluding a woman because it says V'Nasan, and it doesn't say V'Nasna. So that's why he actually includes a minor and excludes a woman. Now, on the other hand, the Rabbanan disagree. Say no. It had to say V'Lakhu and V'Nasan. Why? Because if it would have said V'Lakach or V'Nasan, I would have thought to say it has to be one. If it would have said V'Lakach and V'Nasan, there are two. So I have to say one plural, one singular, to say that even if two take and one give, in other words, the order doesn't make a difference, that's what. But really it's the same as the previous. Whoever they were by a sifa is going to be the same by the kiddush, which is going to be kosher by a woman, and by a zara, it's going to be invalid with a minor. Then when the pasuk continues, it says, you take the azav and you dip it into the water if you're Ishtar. So who is this Ishtar? So according to Rabbanan, Ish tells you a man, and again, according to Rabbanan, a woman is valid in the previous pasuk. Again, this is all mashma, leitzim yad mashma. So here it's telling you that no Ish, v'lo Yish, because what's Ishtar teaching? It's not really teaching me anything. It's teaching you me that actually it's to be the exact opposite of the previous pasuk. Now, depending who you hold, depending what it's going to tell you. According to Rabbanan, it's going to tell you a man, not a woman, and Tar is going to be machshor katan, who's also Tar. According to Yehuda, it's going to be the opposite because he had the previous pasuk opposite. So now he has to be a different mashma, which may have mashma. So Ish is telling you not cotton, and Tar is being machshor and Isha. Then when it says, finally, it's okay, we already did everything, we burnt the paradum, we burnt the azav inside, we gathered the ashes, we took the ashes with the water, and now we dipped the azav in the water, now he's a tar al-tameh, you're going to spray, if you're tar on the tameh, of course it's tar on the tar, what do you mean? It's a chatas, of course the tar, say no, his tar is just barely tar, because he's actually a tvul yain, that's the source that's kosher by par. And we also explained that by the vidu sheni, he's meisef the other kahanim, because he'll be zakai. He already said a vidu for himself, and now he's doing it for everyone else. Then we went to the next mission. We said that he shefts his para. Finally, said to be doing that. He receives the blood, and he gives it to the one that has to mix it on the fourth row from the heichel, as we'll see in the Gemara. And he has someone mixing it because he first goes before he sprays the blood. He takes a pan, he goes up, gets some coals, comes down. He puts down the coals on the Rebbe because he's still got to go ahead and get his ketayros, and then he's going to go and take that into the Kodesh HaKodeshim. Now we said some discrepancies that today was different, specifically on Yom Kippurim, different than every single day. Today the shovel was gold, not silver. It had 3 kavod, not 4 or 6. It was light, not heavy. It was a long handle, not a short one. The gold was red, not yellow. He had to go ahead and add on Malay Chafnav more than he does ketayros every single day. Had to be daka, minha daka, had to be very finely ground. He would go up in the middle and come down, which some say he did that every single day. He also sanctified his hands and feet from a golden flask, not from the kir, which some say also that was every single day. Every single day, we have a machlekes regarding how many marachas there were, and either there was 2 or 3 or 4 every single day. But everyone agrees that today you add on 1 more maracha, making it either 3, 4, or 5. Thank you for any time.